Talent doesn't matter. That's what we're going to talk about today. Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sarah. I help heart-centered service providers, spiritual practitioners, and creatives build the lives and businesses of their dreams. I'm a certified life and business coach, and I love making content like this. It's all about business, creativity, talent, and how to get more of what you want. So if this is something that you're into, make sure you click the subscribe button. I would love to see you again. So what do I mean when I say talent doesn't matter? That's like a wild thing to say, right? Talent, of course, talent matters. Well, it does, but also it really doesn't. And here's the example I'm going to give. I'm a dancer. If you're around, you know that. I've been dancing my entire life. I also sing, I write music. So I've been in the performing arts my entire life. Long before I was in this coaching world, I was teaching creative process and I was working with artists. And one of the things that I learned when I was really young, as a performer, as a dancer, as a creative, especially as someone who is working and living in Los Angeles, there are talented people everywhere. There is someone more talented than you taking your order at the coffee shop. There is someone more talented than you who works as the janitor of the building you're having rehearsal in. There is definitely a 7-year-old who is more talented than I will ever be on YouTube right now. There are a lot of talented people, and talent can sometimes get your foot in the door. But talent on its own is not enough to build a career off of. Talent on its own doesn't get us very far. Consistency will outperform talent in the long run every time. And what I mean by consistency is not just that you're consistently showing up and developing your craft, though that's really important too, because talent still needs to be developed. Natural and innate ability is a wonderful, beautiful thing, but raw talent will only take you so far. You still are going to want to have coaches and teachers and mentors. You're going to want to take the raw material of that talent and hone it and sculpt it and refine it and make it the best it can possibly be. That's where it gets into the area of craft. We're constantly refining our talents and helping to improve them and make them better. So talent at the beginning can be a helpful spark, but we still want to develop that talent. We still want to put training and effort and skill building behind that talent. If we don't, someone who doesn't have as much talent, as much innate natural ability, but does have a really good work ethic and a willingness to put consistent training, development, and skill building behind what they're doing, will potentially get farther than us in the work or in our career, in their efforts. You can be a really talented writer, but the person who sits down and writes 500 words a day and pursues getting a book agent and an editor is probably going to get published faster than the really talented person who writes beautiful things sporadically and doesn't put craftsmanship behind that talent. So that's what I'm meaning when I'm saying talent is not important. There are other things that are really important as well when we're talking about consistency, and they're all connected to work ethic. Are you kind? Are you fun to work with? Are you collaborative? Are you coachable? Do you receive feedback well? Do you deliver things when you say that you're going to? All of us probably know really talented people who are maybe a little bit flighty, maybe a little bit flaky, don't really come through the way they say they're going to, and they're not progressing in their field as much as they would like to. And some of them end up really bitter because they see people who are not as talented as them having better results. And it's easy to sit around all day with your arms crossed over your chest complaining like, that person's not even as good as me. Why are they getting all those opportunities? That person may not be as talented as you are, but are they showing up, making the connections, networking, being helpful, being available, being consistent? I've been on jobs with people who are insanely talented and they don't get called back for a repeat work with that team because they're late, they're rude, they have a diva-ish attitude, they have an inconsistent work ethic, they're not always showing up prepared to give their best. People don't like having them around. And in every industry, it doesn't matter what it is, whether or not people like having you around and enjoy working with you is critically important. There's no industry where you get to that I can think of. Maybe if you're like an astronaut alone on the space station, no, probably not. Like you're still going to have to be like ground control. Those people your life depends on them liking you. So I can't think of a single industry where you get to be entirely alone. And it doesn't matter whether or not people dread taking your calls. People need to enjoy working with you. People need to like having you around. You need to have that, like the people who on their report card it said pleasure to have in class, those are the people who get rebooked. And they may not be the most talented people, but they are the people who are a known quantity and people feel like we can rely on you. You always do what you say you're going to do. You're fun to have around. You're collaborative. You go above and beyond. You give to the team. It's nice to work with you. You make everyone else feel good around you and you're talented. Those are the people who are going to get opportunities again and again and again. So I just want to say this to you. If you're watching this, I'm sure you're talented and that's fantastic. I'm happy for you. I'm talented too. Pretty much everybody that I work with is very, very talented. But the people who are able to create a career off of their talent understand that talent is not enough on its own to build you the level of career that you're looking for. And another thing that I think happens to talented people who are feeling disappointed maybe that they're not seeing the results, the sales, the customers, the clients, the recognition, the applause that they're looking for, is that they start to get down on themselves internally and feel insecure and feel like maybe they're not as good as they think they are, when what's really happening is that they're not putting consistent effort, skill building, and like ongoing development behind their talent. It's like you have flour and sugar and eggs and chocolate, right? You have all the ingredients to make a cake and you're sitting there staring at all of the ingredients on your counter and you're just mad there's no cake. It's still up to you to make the cake. You still have to put the ingredients together. You still have to mix it. You still have to bake it. You still have to frost it. You still have to go hand the cake out to everybody if you want people to be like, oh my God, this cake is so good. But you standing here looking at these raw ingredients and being like, how come nobody tells me I bake the best cakes when I know I bake the best cakes? Nobody knows. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to put that effort in and you're going to have to distribute that out to people. And so I see people get frustrated and get bitter, feeling like they're not getting the support or the recognition they feel like they deserve for their talent. But when we look at the work that they've put in, it makes sense that they're not getting the support and the recognition that they deserve because they're not actually putting in the consistency, the time, the craft. And I did a whole workshop called the Gifted Kid to Struggling Entrepreneur Pipeline. I find that people who were in gifted and talented education as kids, if you were in GATE, if you were told you were really gifted as an actor or a musician, an athlete, a dancer, or something when you were a child, that this sometimes really messes us up in adulthood. Because in gifted education as children, we're essentially praised for being the fastest and not making mistakes and for being naturally good at things, which means we don't end up building a lot of resilience. We don't end up learning much how to learn. And we get the idea that like the only things we should be praised for are things that come really naturally to us and that we are told that we're really good at by other people. And when we're not getting that external validation, we feel concerned that our identity as someone who is gifted and talented is under threat and we get upset. And so it really isn't a great setup in adulthood for success because you enter a field where there are lots of talented people and some of them are resilient and willing to work hard, or not even work hard, but just willing to work, willing to put themselves out there, willing to be consistent, willing to keep showing up, willing to keep pursuing opportunities. They don't fall apart when they don't get huge recognition right off the bat and they're not having people saying, oh my God, you're so good, you're so talented, I can't believe how great you are the first time they drop something. And for some of us who were in GATE as kids, if we don't get immediate praise, we get frustrated and we just move on. And that doesn't really help us out long term. So these are my thoughts about how talent is important, but doesn't really matter in the long run. I would love to know what you think about this. Tell me what your thoughts are. Put them in the comments. If you can relate on either side, do you feel like you're not the most talented, but you are a consistent hard worker and you develop skills? If so, tell me that. Do you feel like you are really talented and you're just kind of realizing that maybe your talent makes you feel a little entitled to recognition? So when you don't get it, you give up, and you don't always put craft and consistency behind your talent. I know that can be a vulnerable thing to admit, but let me know in the comments. I want to know. Tell me what you think about this. Let's talk about it. Okay, love you. Bye.